The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
All right, it's episode number 37, and it is 95 days till the man burns as of this recording. So a couple of quick announcements before we get into the meat of today's episode. First thing, if you go over to burnerpodcast.com, what you will see, it's going to be a tab on the top. There's going to be a button for you to click on. It says Alkaline. Alkaline, if you have not heard, is Burner Podcast's first spin-off show. Burner Podcast presents Alkaline, and it's a DJ mix show. So twice a month, we're going to be bringing you brand new exclusive sets by DJs that are active in the Burning Man community. And it's something that I've wanted to do since we started this show, because to cover really the scope and energy of our culture and our community, we couldn't leave out the music of Burning Man. And that's such a major part of our environment and everything that we experience in burner culture. So Burner Podcast Presents Alkaline is furthering our mission of covering the history of our community and our culture. Go to burnerpodcast.com. The link is there. The show is being produced by Navjeet, the music editor who you've heard referenced many times on this episode, and Amber Rose, who is the newest addition to the Burner Podcast team. Those two are producing this amazing show. The very first episode is with Red Sonia, and it was really, truly incredible. She put together this very emotional mix, and it's interesting. I've had multiple people tell me after listening to the show that they felt like there was a lot of emotion in it, and she herself even told me after I ran into her at the coffee shop that's close by to our place in San Diego, and she told me that she really just laid out all of her emotions in this mix, and I'm not even the artist that made the mix, and I am satisfied on her behalf that people who heard the mix got that feeling out of it, that it felt like a release of emotions. It went through multiple different experiences and sensations, and it's just, you know what, dude, it's just a really dope mix. So you can find that new show at alkalinepodcast.com, or just go to burnerpodcast.com. There will be a link on the top. Burner Podcast Presents Alkaline. Check that out. I'm so excited about it. So happy, and I get so geeked out listening to Amber Rose and Navjeet get really excited about who they're going to have next on the show. So check that out. Big news, awesome news. Very excited about that. The other thing that you're going to be seeing on there, it's not up on the website yet, but it will be in the coming week or so. We're going to add a tab on there for bonus content. Might not call it that. We'll figure that out pretty soon. But here's what's happening with the bonus content. We have linked up with an amazing contributing producer from the Bay Area. And if you know anything about burner culture, you know Bay Area is like the Washington, D.C. of burnerdom. Suzanne Iris, she is up there, and she is linked up with the East Bay Burners. And the East Bay Burners do, I'm not sure if it's a weekly or a monthly, but they do a meetup just like we do here in San Diego and a lot of the other major communities around the world that have active Burning Man communities. They have their meetup, and their meetup is a little bit like TED Talk-ish, where people go up and make presentations. And so the East Bay Burners in their social, I think this is, they had these in Oakland. They had a Playa Arts sneak preview where you can get a taste of some of the major art that's going out to the Playa this year. And another social was about the music that's going to be out there. So Sue's our good friend up there, our contributing producer, recorded both of these, and they still have tons of amazing information. I reviewed them, and we beat around the idea of putting them on an episode of Burner Podcast, but there would be a lot of background explanation, there would be a lot of editing involved. So ultimately we decided that it would serve the purposes of the recording best if we simply shared it with you as bonus content at burnerpodcast.com. So go to burnerpodcast.com in about a week. You'll see a tab up there for bonus content or whatever. And you can learn some more, learn about some of the art that's going out to the playa and about some of the musicians that are going to be out there. And you'll just be able to hear these recordings and kind of feel like what it must be like to actually sit in that room in an East Bay social over there in Oakland and hang out with some East Bay burners and just be a part of that energy. And if you are, from wherever you're listening, anywhere in the world, we want your recordings. We want your recordings. If you have recorded any events, conversations, if you're recording an essay, let's say instead of writing a blog entry, you just want to record yourself talk, we're open to sharing that. Yeah. Go to burnerpodcast.com, shoot us a message. You can tweet me at Mr. Arash if you want to get a hold of me. Find me on Facebook. We would like to hear from you, and we will share whatever recorded material you have on burnerpodcast.com, obviously assuming that, it doesn't have to be like in real good taste, but in like mildly good taste, or it's relevant somehow. Shoot us a message over at burnerpodcast.com, and we're totally open to that. We want to share more of the community, and my biggest dream ultimately is to have producers from around the world contribute content so that we can make this a real global show. I want this to be the place for burners from all over the world, not just from people that we can reach physically from Southern California and the playa and all that. So anyway, burnerpodcast.com. Check all that stuff out. That's all the content that's being on there. Today's show. I really wanted today's show to have been episode number 36, but instead Lindsay's episode, Russell the Electric Giraffe, that ended up being episode number 36. And so I was adamant that episode 37 must be about the Maker movement, because in episode 36, I'm sure you heard the Maker movement referenced quite a bit, the Maker's Faire, and you may be super familiar with the Maker's Faire or Maker Faire, or you might have some idea of it in the periphery. You must be hearing about the Maker Faire around the community, as I have, but I wasn't completely sure what really the Maker Faire is, what the Maker movement was. So I really wanted to do this episode, which is going to be kind of an introduction to maker culture. And what I learned is that the Maker movement is very much the sister movement to the burner movement. And we're going to be learning about that in the upcoming 2 interviews. This episode is in 2 segments. The first segment is with our good friend Dave Cox, who is a very active burner in our local community, and Dave Cox, whom I worked under for the Wanderlust Arcade that we took out to the playa last year. Dave is brilliant and sweet and kind, and he's just really an amazing person, and I cannot say enough good things about him. So in the first segment of this episode, it's going to be an hour-long interview with Dave Cox. The first third of it is going to be about his upbringing and his personal background, and then we get into his discovery of the Maker movement and his involvement with it, and his past decade-long relationship with the Maker Faire. Dave has attended the Maker Faire in the Bay Area for the past 10 years. This past year was the first one that he couldn't attend. 9 years. This 10th year was the first one he couldn't attend for some reason. So I said, hey, cool. This would be a perfect time for me to snag you and talk to you about his Maker Faire experience. So you're going to get the attendee, the involved person, the burner. You're going to get that story. You're going to get that experience. We're going to get his input on that. And in the second segment of this episode, I am going to sit down with Cody and Bob. Cody is the event producer of the mini Maker Faire that takes place here in San Diego, California, and Bob is a burner who works with Cody on putting that amazing event together. Cody and Bob work for the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. That is where the Mini Maker Faire happens. So that's going to be the second segment. And on that one, we're going to get into sort of what goes into producing a Maker Faire, more like the logistical conversations. And that one really does, for me, really cement how burner culture and Burning Man culture and Maker Faire culture are so connected. And it's like, we're cousins or siblings that grew up together. So I'm very excited to bring you this episode. I'm looking forward to doing more of these shows that feel more NPR-ish. because ultimately that's my real dream, is to just, go work for NPR. but yeah, the 2 different segments rather than one long conversation. We want to bring you more of this kind of stuff. So, as the shows demand it, as the subjects call for it, we're going to have more experimentation with Burner Podcast. So let's go ahead and get into it. Today's episode is entitled The Maker Movement. I had to think about that for a second. The show is about the Maker Movement, so we just called it the Maker Movement. I'm not very good at naming things. Anyway, I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was a fly with no bones and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, because there ain't no one for the you get no name.
Red shirt, just
right?
And they're all party drinks in their hands, and instead of Stalin has a lamp
right
on his head.
The Communist Party.
It's the Communist
Party.
So I would love to be more of a silly t-shirt guy.
I've got a lot of silly t-shirts. Woot.
Yeah.
WOOT.
Yeah.
.com. They have awesome shirts.
Is that the site where people vote on the shirts? Or
Mm-hmm.
It is,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they have.
That's where the Communist Party shirt came from.
Oh, I'm not at all surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have. I get a lot of shirts for Delilah and Barbara and I. It's just
That's great.
kind of one of those. Yeah, I have the Shri Raptor.
Shri Raptor?
So the sriracha sauce with the chicken head.
Yeah.
Or actually, it's a whole chicken. This is the Shri Raptor instead of Sriracha.
Oh.
So it has the Velociraptor thing.
Yeah.
Monstrous teeth.
Yeah.
And I wore that to the Utopia with the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs theme.
Yeah.
And a robot dinosaur happy. And
Robots versus dinosaurs.
a
Robots and dinosaurs unite.
Direct hit. Exactly.
Yes. Well, Dave, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you are certainly welcome.
So I wanted to, so you've been to the Maker Faire in the Bay Area 9 years in a row.
I have been. This is my first year missing it.
It.
I didn't go this year.
You missed it just to come to the show.
Well, we had there was a whole series of we were going to do this adventure and that adventure over the summer, and then one thing led to another. And, oh, well, we'll save a little money and not do that trip, and we'll do this other trip instead. And now I'm just kind of wishing that I had gone. But I did go to, they had a Maker's Arcade on the pier here in San Diego, Broadway Pier.
Yeah.
Which was like, I shared it as being about a 1/20th scale version of the bizarre part of Maker Faire.
Yeah. So we're recording this interview right now, me and you.
Yeah.
But I'm actually hoping to get the coordinators from that event to be the other segment of this show.
Awesome.
So we're waiting to hear back.
Yeah.
So if it does, that works out perfectly.
Yeah.
Then it's like a part 2 and
part 1 of the story. Segue.
Yes.
Yeah.
So full disclosure for the listeners, Dave and I know each other because last year, if you're a regular listener, you probably heard us talk a lot about the Wonderlust Arcade, which I worked on, and Dave was such a massive, super important part of getting that whole thing together. And we rode out to the playa together, so I spent a lot of time geek grilling you about your job.
Right.
So can you, in a couple of sentences, give us a background of what you do?
What I do professionally.
Yes.
So I am I have the self-chosen title of the Director of Special Projects for a company in town here who manufactures industrial instrumentation, so pipe inspection cameras and stuff to find buried utilities and all sorts of interesting things like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of the head of the long-term R&D arm of that.
Yeah.
So we talk about, here's the class of problem we want to solve, and then I start poking and prodding at, okay, well, what are the different pieces, parts that you'd have to put together, and how would you put them together, and what sort of interface to the human, the user experience, and what sort of power, and what sort of storage, and blah, 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 all those
long-term R&D. So, like, I feel like your futurist abilities, I feel like, come into play a lot with that job.
Yeah, I definitely, I collect pieces and parts of solutions. So, like, we're working on this underground utility locator, and we have been working on this most recent version of it for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So, long time.
Yeah.
The last big bunch of this product, I think, was 2007. So yeah, it's like coming up on 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and during that time, obviously working on other stuff also, but kind of like collecting skills, figuring out, okay, how do we do this? For instance, running an operating system. How do you deal with booting Linux quickly? How do you deal with displaying large amounts of information? How do you deal with network access, getting stuff on and off, and all of these sort of classes of problems? And you figure out little ways to solve them, and you sort of, stick them in a mental drawer and say, okay, well, I know at least one way to solve that problem.
Yeah. And I imagine, as with any science, like, you're kind of looking at this long-term thing that you're working on, but the little solutions you're coming up with along the way end up being solutions to other problems and other projects.
And that goes both ways. The little solutions along the way, that knowledge washes into other designs.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you realize, oh, okay, now I've figured out how to do this. That works well over here. But then you also start seeing the shortcomings of it, or you realize, oh, well, but I could do it better by adding this feature, or by making it run a little more efficiency, or, oh, if I just change my battery pack instead of using, this technology or this voltage or whichever, I could use this other thing, and that would make it lighter or run faster or longer or whatever you want to do. And so, there's a whole lot of that tweaky that goes back and forth.
Yeah. And it's really cool because, like, so the reason that I wanted to have you on the show and to balance it off with coordinating with other people that are working in the maker movement is, of course, because of your long, rich history with makerism. So I kind of wanted to go back into your life. Okay. And I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you've pretty much been a maker since you have human memories.
So, yes. So actually, my mom was a teacher and an artist. My dad was an engineer, and then later he taught at San Diego State. And so the combination of kind of art and technology and gathering information and sharing information, that's always been a part of my lore. I was actually remembering, we used to visit my grandma up in Montana, and it was, long drive, so we'd stay for a week, and they were out in the middle of nowhere, and so I had a whole lot of time to just fiddle around. My mom had bought me a bag of assorted size balsa wood pieces.
What are balsa wood pieces?
Balsa wood. So balsa wood is a very light, soft wood, which is really easy to work with in terms of knives and stuff like that. You could even gouge it with your fingernails. It's so soft.
Okay.
but there were a bunch of different, there were blocks and kind of bricks and sheets and all this. And I was probably 10. And in the process of a couple of days, I remember whittling and kind of, constructing this thing that was sort of a block, but it had all these fold out elements. And so it had a handle that folded out and then this round rod. So it was like you could turn it into a gun, or you could fold that in and you could pull out this antenna and turn it into a walkie-talkie, or you could flip this other thing down. And it had about half a dozen features, which, took a lot of imagination to see what that thing actually was. But that was kind of, I don't even remember why, but I was thinking about that recently, and just like, if I knew now what I knew then, that's the sort of thing that could easily have been made into a then day product, which, could have been something that, it was like a transformer, but this was 10, 20 years before the transformer thing. And, that sort of stuff my whole life.
Yeah. Would you get in trouble ever for like dismantling things?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would say you're lucky if you have the opportunity to get in trouble in moderation.
Okay. Why?
That if you can get away with that stuff, if your parents will tolerate you taking things apart. And I was pretty good at not tearing apart too many, working things. My dad had a lot of boxes of random stuff in the garage, and I would futz around with that. He had a whole box of relays. And I remember fiddling around with these relays, and they were 120-volt relays. So if you touch the wrong part of them when they're plugged in, you feel it. So you learn pretty quickly to not do the wrong thing. But I actually made a couple of bit adding machine out of these relays and light bulbs and stuff, and did a lot of that, and tear apart. Mostly I was good and tore apart things that were broken. I got really good at fixing things.
Yeah.
Also,
were you friends with a lot of other kids that did stuff like this?
No, I was. Unfortunately, I didn't really have too many nerd friends. I'll say. I always had a reputation for being, I guess you'd say, smart, tinker kind of guy. A lot of my friends were into, sports and fishing and baseball. Not too much into that sort of thing myself, but, we would chat about things. But I was mostly on my own, and my dad was so busy building his company that I only got kind of parts out of him. I was I reflected a ways back that I was sort of feral, just sort of raised myself to a large degree. And, my parents would say, "Oh, be home by dark," and, here's dinner and all that sort of stuff. I never lacked for the basics, but kind of just did my own thing.
Totally. And then, so let's flash forward a little bit to college. So the tinkering continues throughout life. What do you end up going to school for?
So, when I graduated from high school, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. I went to Palomar College for a while. Started as an art and music major. Was a jeweler for a while. I interned with a metalsmith in Escondido and did some kind of cool stuff. I actually have some pieces that I duplicated for the Ben Franklin Gallery. Did a lot of, people would get in Thanksgiving would come along, and, somebody's washing the dishes and the silverware goes in the dishwasher and have to. So I did a lot of repairs on things like that. And that was interesting and fun. But when it came to having a regular paycheck and like the idea of buying a car and having this on the 5th of every month, I have to have whatever, $123 for this old junker. And that was really hard to do.
Yeah.
And so I decided, I went back to Palomar and I got a certificate in a robotics flexible manufacturing systems technology.
Okay, how did you come up with that?
So
I don't even know where I would look for that in the catalog.
I kid you not, late night infomercial on cable TV in Escondido. It was summer. I was working on making a little bit of money doing stained glass. I did a lot of titanium earrings. I was selling titanium earrings, so trying to make bits here and there. And as I'm doing this, this infomercial comes on, and flexible manufacturing systems technology, robotics technician. This will change your life, kind of thing.
And that caught your attention.
It got my attention, and I'm like, I know how to solder. I know a little bit about electronics. I had fiddled with stuff. And so did that, became a technician, and got a job at a place up in San Marcos, calibrating stuff initially. And that I should add, from my dad's company, one of the things that I learned was computer programming. We talked about sort of breaking into things. He had his machines were not old at that time. They were brand spanking new, but they were CPM operating system running on a Z80. And my dad was not a programmer, but he had in the early 80s these computers available for me, for people, and they needed testing, so I would get on these things, and I learned basic programming by taking some venture games and reverse engineering them and seeing, okay, if I change this piece of code, what happens, so on and so forth. So I taught myself how to program, and then took some more classes, more formal classes at Palomar.
How long did it take you to teach yourself how to program?
Wait, you learn bits and pieces by breaking things and fixing them. You don't really master them that way, is my experience, but it gives you an interest, and that is maybe one of the sparks of what being a maker is all about. Is it's having a passion for something, and you go beyond initial poking and prodding at this thing, and realize, hey, there are probably people that know more about this than I do. And so you go and you take a class and you learn up on it, and you add another tool to your tool to the toolkit. And so you learn to program, and you learn to it's been interesting to me. My jewelering skills have come back to haunt me more than once, even in engineering space, where I know about annealing metals. I know about work hardening. I know about how these different materials work together or don't work together. And my days working in stained glass, my days working in, all of these different little things. And it's always kind of interesting how they all come together.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's hitting me right now too, that those personality types often overlap, like the programmer and being able to physically tinker with things, because you're essentially, what you're doing is you're attracted to the idea of creating a thing that starts working on its own. So as a programmer, you're doing that in a digital environment.
Sure.
Whereas if you're creating a robot, it's essentially doing the same thing. That's interesting. Yeah, because I remember Navjeet, our music editor, who you know very well. I remember he and our friend Boone were going off in a conversation about how they will spend hours and hours figuring out which code to write in order to never do it again. Set it up on autopilot so it just does it on its own.
Yeah. And that's sort of the ultimate example of a tool, right? Where, I mean, a tool is sort of like it amplifies your ability to do something.
Yeah.
Well, if you can make a tool that will automatically just keep doing that thing, well, then you've been like excused from any responsibility of ever having to do that again. You sort of set it free and hopefully it runs right.
Yeah. It's like the screwdriver works, or you can build a drill, a battery-powered drill, and it's going to take longer to build that battery-powered drill, but now you're going to be able to like plow through the work a lot faster.
Exactly.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so flash forward to when you discover the maker community. I mean, because I'm still sort of trying to wrap my head around what this is, because it's not like a branded thing. It's not like a trademark, like, you know, you're a maker.
Right.
But just in the past few years, little by little, it's like shown up quite a bit. And of course, the reason we're discussing it is because there's such a huge overlap of it with the burner community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to know, like, were you introduced to the burner community first or the maker community?
Well, so, okay. I would say what being a maker means is a maker is someone who is passionate about doing this thing. And that thing can be from a huge, wide swath of life.
Yeah.
Some of the over collection of going to these maker fairs, which are these places where these passionate people get together, and because they're passionate about it, they want to show off their stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe they want to share how they do it. And so you find these just fabulous arrays of people that on this side of the building, there's this lady who has been spinning yarn and has figured out how to integrate different animal hairs. So like cat hair, which you normally think of being largely useless. Well, you can't just make yarn out of cat hair, but if you use some Angora and then mix the cat hair in it and all this sort of stuff. And then there's these guys over here who are the Astromech Society that make these R2-D2 knockoffs. Yeah. And then there's the guys that they're doing their own fermentation workshop, and you know, the kombucha thing. Yeah. And then there's the cheese makers, and then there's these 3D printing is just like everywhere. And
so what wouldn't fall under maker?
So I call my like mental box that I put maker in is it's something that a person has found this passion for, that whether they make money at it or not is almost secondhand. Mm-hmm. It's something they do because they're passionate, and in some cases they have been able to take that passion and move that into a space of financial return. Yeah. So a lot of times, and I guess I would also add that making usually implies, again, my definition.
Sure, yeah.
Usually implies a looking back at taking technology or taking skill sets from other people in the past that have done something similar, and taking that, researching it, adapting it, and moving forward. Yeah. And I think part of why the maker movement sort of has taken off of recent is with the advent of the internet, with the advent of this proliferation of the Instructables and YouTube videos and all of these people that you get the people that have the seed of knowledge, and they plant these seeds out there that, hey, kombucha, ooh, yeah, look, you can do this thing and it's awesome. And then you get these people that go to the store and they buy a bottle of kombucha and they say, oh, this stuff's kind of interesting. I wonder if I can make this. And today you can go to this device that you probably have in your pocket, and you can type how do I make kombucha?
You're probably listening to it on that device right now.
Thanks,
Yeah.
you know? I mean,
So is us doing this podcast a maker
absolutely.
thing?
You're a maker.
Huh.
You're a podcast maker.
Huh. I mean,
Yeah.
what doesn't fall into maker?
Well, I think maker requires passion.
Uh-huh.
Maker requires, I would say, a desire to improve that art also.
Okay.
And so if you are someone who, as a profession, for instance, you might be a baker, okay? And if you make the same loaf of bread, the same croissant, the same bun, every day, the same style, that is a quality, that is a profession. Those are laudable skills. But that isn't a maker. To me, a maker implies that you're passionate about it and you're wanting to improve this. You're wanting to push this boundary.
Okay.
And so the maker, to me, becomes okay, what if I change this yeast? What happens? What if all these people are gluten-free now? Well, what does that mean? How can I use a non-glutinous material in my bread to make this happen? And that's where the maker part really comes in. It's not just doing the thing over and over, especially in a commodified space where you're doing it just for money, but it's about doing it because you actually like doing it, and because it's this exploration of how far can you push the limit of doing this thing.
That's fascinating. So this is giving me clarity now
Sure.
on how and why it overlaps with the burner community so much.
Yes.
Because even in the burner community, I was just thinking about this before you walked over here, because I was texting back and forth with a friend of mine, and the burner community is so vast, and we have so many different kinds of characters and personalities in there.
Absolutely.
And I was in the middle of some conversations about how to put together an upcoming episode of the show, which is going to be about like the spirituality of a lot of burners. And I was going to joke it might be called like the goddess episode or something.
Sure.
But it's funny because so I was thinking about some of these things that we're going to be discussing on that episode, which we have many friends that on one angle would be like, yes, absolutely, you are goddesses and, all this, right? And then we have our other friends who scoff at that and think it is the stupidest thing ever, and like they make fun of it. Yeah. And yet we're all in the same community.
Yeah.
So
and part of the thing that I really enjoy about Burning Man is that there is a tolerance, a high level of tolerance. And at the same time, there is an acceptance of the snarky sort of thing, which is this intolerance veiled as tolerance kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And vice versa. Tolerance veiled as intolerance, and intolerance veiled as tolerance.
Yeah.
That might be the new tagline of the show.
Bang. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's the opening warning of the show is that this is all just opinions, and calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
Yep.
So what was the first Maker Faire 9 years ago?
Yeah.
How did you come across that?
So, I found this very interesting magazine called Make Magazine. And at that time, they had a sister magazine called Craft Magazine, which, by the way, no longer exists.
Yeah.
It got kind of subsumed into
Maker.
Yeah.
Maker sounds way sexier.
Well, and it's really craft.
Because it feels like it's a lot of similar things that you're describing, but craft like seems to have gotten eaten up by the stereotype of like the little Midwestern lady.
And craft, I think, and I've never verbalized this before, but I think craft is more about the idea of duplicating a thing.
Ah, okay.
Whereas the maker movement is over that. It takes the craft and it allows you to expand that craft into other whole things.
Yeah. As a society, we're encouraging more originality than we used to.
synthesis as well. And that's one of the interesting things with the maker movement as well. You don't have to be per se original and creative. There's a whole other set of skills, which is the skill of synthesis, which kind of like in engineering, like we were talking about, where you build these little tool sets. You figure out how to solve this problem, this problem, this problem. And if you can take some of those seemingly disparate little pieces, parts, and cobble them together to make something that works, that's part of the whole maker thing also. That you can take 5 different podcasts, all of which are how to do this, making cheese or whatever. And if you can synthesize those things together without being per se creative in the conventional, like, it came to me in a flash of light or whatever, it's like you can take this piece of information that's wholly out there in the universe and make kind of an intuitive, oh, well, I could just substitute this for that, or, put these pieces together and make that happen.
Because the entirety of human knowledge now rests in our palms, we can access that information faster than ever before.
Yeah. And
so Burning Man, in essence, is pretty much the world's most insane Maker Faire.
It is. Well, and it's interesting because I would say you look at burners and pull a number out of my hat. Maybe it's a quarter of the burners that I would kind of class as makers. That they're the gals and guys that are doing the art cars and the blinking lights and their wild costumes and all of this. And there's, of the other 3/4, those other 3/4 are helping to make that all happen by, in some aspects, helping to be a audience for that, to be a market for that, to be a place of idea generation. And, all of these different people kind of do these different roles and it all works together. If everyone were makers, it would certainly be even a wilder world. But, the fact that you have people that can appreciate the artistic, the creative, the makerness of it, and maybe even the very fact that there's this level of wonder that some people approach and, wow, I could never do that. Well, really, you can do some of this. Maybe you can't do to the same level, or maybe you'd surprise yourself. Maybe you find the passion. You start off down this road and off you go. I have a friend, girlfriend from college, Jennifer, and she was an architecture major. And after we parted directions for a while, got back in touch with her. She had started knitting and had figured out how to make unique patterns. And so, here she's gone from engineer to she's stitchdiva.com gal now. And so, here she went from like, oh, well, would she really be ever interested in sewing and knitting and crochet and all of these, I'm doing a terrible job here because I can't even tell exactly what the heck exact thing it is, but that she got this passion. And that passion made this happen and injected her life with all of these interesting possibilities. And now there are these other people who she is sort of virally infecting with this. This is this cool thing that you can do with yarn. And moving that out in the world.
So we as human beings, and we're going to still go back to your first Maker Faire. We keep going off that. Sorry. But we as human beings, and this is a spiritual place that I've come to, that I've discovered that it is in our essence to create. When I first sort of began my artistic journey and sort of making peace with my soul as an artist, I used to and other artist friends of mine too, and everybody would have the same kind of experience where we would say, like, it seems like some of us just have this like frequency turned on in our brains and we can't turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to just like, be quote unquote normal and go to work and have like a decent paying job that's not crazy artist. But we can't shut it off. More recently, however, the spiritual place that I've come to is that first it turns out we are all artists. As a human being, the very first thing that you do when you start to learn how to use your limbs as an infant, you start wanting to build something. You want to draw something. You want to put something on top of something. Mm-hmm. Eventually, it turns into you want to build a life, or even children. You want to recreate. Sure. We create as human beings. That is our drive. All we're doing is creating. So it seems like part of what's happening is that you have like the maker movement, and then you have the burner community, which encourages makerism, and other subcultures and communities that are popping up all over the world. This is the realization that everybody's coming to: is we it's a drive. It is what drives human beings, and simply being this machine that goes to work in order to make a paycheck is just not enough. Everybody wants to do something. And even if a part of it is to use that is almost their way of psychologically making, by being a part of the making process.
Oh, yeah.
And it's pretty beautiful.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I think the creative outlet, that place where you can build this thing, whatever it is, that gives you passion, that gives you spark, that's the stuff that provides meaning.
Yeah.
Having a paycheck is a good thing because it helps to stabilize your life and it makes you figure, oh, yes, I can afford this car and all this. But at the same time, having a passion, having a spark to do something, and I think that's a lot. Pick a number, maybe 80% of the makers out there. A maker is a side deal. They've got their day job, and then they've got on the weekends they pickle, or they
because more and more we're coming to the realization that money is not going to buy you happiness,
right? And so you compartmentalize it. You say, okay, I can do this. I can turn this crank. Hopefully, I have some meaning in my job, so that's that helps. Also makes me feel good about doing the thing, make people happy, whatever. But that you have this little secret. That, tonight I'm going to go home and I'm going to try out that new whatever. Whether it's a Raspberry Pi or whether which is a computer, not just the food.
Yes.
Or whether it's a Raspberry Pi that you're making from scratch with fresh berries and,
We don't want to judge the Raspberry Pi bakers out
there. Either way, man, it's all lovely.
Saints.
Right. Absolutely.
So first Maker Faire, what was it? How big was it? Where was it?
Oh, geez. So trying to remember specific. I've been to so many of them. It was at the San Mateo Fairgrounds. It was, and I'm trying to remember, as I say, specific details. I know there was the one with the rocket ship, but I think that was about 7 years ago.
How many people do you think were there at the first one that you went to?
Oh, I would guess for the whole weekend, there was probably 15,000.
Wow, that's pretty big.
That may be high.
Yeah.
But it was, there were a lot of people interested even at that point, and that was.
And this is in the Bay Area.
Bay Area,
okay.
And that was the second or third year that the event had happened.
So by the third year, they had 15,000 people.
I think that's probably right.
That is pretty impressive.
Again, that's over the whole weekend.
Okay, yeah.
But
I mean, just the fact that we're in thousands is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how many of the Make magazines were out there.
Yeah.
But that was a national publication, and they got some traction in that space for sure.
So what are you doing at a Maker Faire? You're walking around and playing with different things? Like, what does a day at the Maker Faire feel like?
Well, there are different areas in the fair. So, and I actually went to the Maker Faire before I went to Burning Man.
Yeah. Okay.
And in fact, one of the things that I saw at one of the earlier Maker Fairs was the Never Was Hall, which is, for people who aren't familiar, it is a Victorian house that basically got converted into a motorhome.
Okay.
Where they initially, I think initially they actually had, it may have actually been steam-powered tractor that they were using to move this Victorian vintage motorhome around.
Yeah.
And it's like, full 3-story gigantic building. And just, it was, I guess it was literally this house that was going to be torn down, and these people got together and decided, no, we could do this. And
they put wheels on it. Okay.
And they put giant like steam tractor wheels on it.
Oh my Lord.
And it has like the steering wheel is like from a riverboat.
Yeah.
And ropes and all the beautiful machinations, and there's kind of the steampunkish edge to it, a lot of that. But so yeah, Makers Fairs. I mean, they're going to be a lot of exhibit areas. Sometimes they're thematic, so there's going to be, like I say, the astromech guys. There's always a big following of the R2-D2 kind of peeps out there. There's a lot of people who have the food maker thing.
Yeah.
So whether that is growing your own stuff, so they'll have different areas where they'll have lectures and demos, people talking about, composting or raising chickens, or you go and some of the booths will have things for sale. So for instance, I bought a kit one year to make mozzarella cheese. Turns out it's really easy to make mozzarella cheese. You get a gallon of milk, and in this kit, it's got citric acid and lipase and rennet, and you slowly heat up the milk, and you add the citric acid, and it curdles the milk into the curds in the whey, and you add the lipase at a little higher temperature and the rennet, and then you got these rubber gloves, and you make these balls, and an hour later, you have gone from a gallon of milk to 4 nice nodules of this cheese that you made. You made this, and you take this to this potluck or something, and people come up and say, "Oh, what did you bring?" And you say, "I made this cheese." You see this cheese? I made this.
Yeah.
And it's like, you see people light up. They're like, "Can you bake cheese? How do you make cheese?"
Now we got to make pizza.
Exactly.
Now we got to make more shit.
Totally. No, and that's the thing. It was like that. I literally. Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was delicious.
It's better than store-bought cheese.
And it was that. So we have some raised planters that I'd made, and again, those like parts of knowledge I'd gathered from the Maker's Faire. Okay, how do you compost? How do you do sort of this sort of stuff? And so this one meal, I made the cheese. I harvested basil and tomatoes from our garden. I didn't bake the bread that time, but could have made the bread and the whole bruschetta thing, and it was delicious. But so yeah, Maker Faire. So I got this cheese kit there. You go to the Bizarre Bazaar. So it's this beautiful blob of people bringing things together. Clothes, they have a swap-a-rama-rama where people just bring clothes in, and you throw the clothes in a pile, and you go find other stuff, and they have sewing machines, they have hot glue guns, they have scissors.
Where's the Bizarre Bazaar?
It's inside Maker
inside
Faire.
Maker Faire. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so people will reconfigure clothes. They'll take an old pair of pants and cut some holes in it and put patches on it, or they'll turn a T-shirt into a bag, or they'll all of these different sorts of things.
Amazing.
So there's the fabric, the crafty side. There's another side of it which is so the Flaming Lotus Girls. Okay, so I think this is an awesome movement, Bay Area. I'm sure I'm going to do a huge disservice here by saying a bunch of things wrong, but as I get it, basically there were a number of women who were at one point talking and saying, hey, wouldn't it be really cool to actually get our hand on some metal, do some cutting, some welding. And they got in touch with some peeps and they made sort of this guild, clan, whatever, Flaming Lotus Girls. So they learned and were taught and now teach classes of doing foundry, metalsmithing, blacksmithing, welding, cutting, framing, forming, all of these different traditionally masculine, like, He-Man, bang, bang on the anvil sort of stuff. And they're doing this stuff. And they're building, when you go to Burning Man, there will be the Flaming Lotus Girls will have these beautiful art structures, which they have created, they have made.
Yeah.
And so they have, there's a section of the Maker Faire that has a bunch of different groups that both instruct simple things at the fair, like how to make a knife, how to blow glass, simple introductory kind of things. So all the way into like, okay, locksmithing. They have a lock picking workshop there. It's actually amazingly easy to pick a lock. And it's one of those things.
That's not fantastic news.
It's not fantastic news, but if you know this.
Yeah. Can I make a better lock on my door?
Exactly.
Okay.
You can get a better lock, and it's, again, it's a skill. It's another thing to add to your tool set.
Yeah.
Soldering workshops. It's been an interesting, Maker Faire has been an interesting place where sort of a crossroad between the market and the people. So there used to be this place called Radio Shack.
Yeah. R.I.P. Radio Shack.
Yeah, exactly.
Very recently.
And they actually have made a little bit of a comeback. There are some of the stores that are back to selling.
Really?
Yeah. So they did the Chapter 11 kind of bouncy thing.
Yeah, I thought they were gone.
Yeah, well, they're not dead yet.
Yeah.
But one of their last big hurrahs was, if we could really ride this maker movement, okay? So they put a lot of money into Maker Faire, and they paid for these little robot learn to solder kits.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of them. And so they had a tent, and you go into the Radio Shack learn to solder thing, and it was free.
Wow.
A lot of these things are all free because they're promoting their tools and the maker passion thing. And so likewise, you get companies that make 3D printers or that make 3D mills, things that can take a big block of wood and turn it into whatever, a chair.
A lot of what you're describing basically sounds like Comic-Con.
You got it.
It's Comic-Con. It's just that, I'm there for comic books and anime.
So as a Comic-Con, think about Comic-Con, though, as being a consumer model.
Yeah.
Where most people that attend Comic-Con, and again, there are certainly makers that go to Comic-Con, especially the cosplay peeps.
Yeah.
My God, you talk about some makers, they're serious in their art. But a lot of the peeps that go to Comic-Con are more about consuming the product of DC Comics, etc.
There's still large companies that you still have to kind of bow to, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and you're buying, in that case, you're consuming a specific product that's been refined, and they in a lot of ways don't allow you to modify it.
Yeah.
In the maker space, the product that you're consuming usually is a tool designed to do other things. Or is a starting point. So where in makerspace, you buy a 3D printer, or you buy a set of knives, or you buy a Raspberry Pi computer, like I've talked about, or Arduino, or a thing that lets you make things.
Yeah. Could I go to a Maker Faire and not spend any money on buying things, but still come home with a lot of stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, so
because that's why I used to go to Comic-Con.
Bang. Right. So I have a number of the years that I went to the Maker Faire, I took my daughter with. And so, and it's a very different experience going with her. Because when I go with her, all of a sudden, we go in the main door, we start going down the first aisle, and there's a shiny thing.
Yeah.
And this shiny thing is, for instance, there's a wall which has the pegboard, sort of, all the holes in it, and all of these nails, and then there are these tubes, and you can kind of configure how the tubes are on this wall, and then you drop a marble through the tube, and it swirls around and shoots out, and it goes into a funnel, and, and this is
It's like an OK Go video.
bang. Yeah, it's like, just have at it, have fun. And so, again, that very much changes the maker experience, because if I'm going as a father, where I'm promoting her desire to solve and all this sort of stuff, all of a sudden, whereas me, I want to run through as many of the aisles as I can because I don't want to miss things. Whereas she wants to go deep with one thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of not having to buy things, she spends tons of time doing these explorations. And there are a lot of companies in there that will have, companies or individuals, that'll have a freebie hands-on, do this thing, play this game, paint this widget, construct this, whatever, because it's all about expanding your skill set, learning up, figuring out how to do things. So yeah, you could totally, now let me say that a Maker's Faire versus, like the Maker Bazaar. The Maker Bazaar over the weekend was a really, really fun thing. A lot of interesting, really cool creations, made stuff there. But it was mostly geared towards sales of things that makers make.
Interesting. Okay.
There was an art station at the end where kids can build some stuff, and there were a couple of the booths that were a little more interactive.
So difference between Maker Bazaar, Maker Faire. Important distinction.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
And really a lot of the a lot of the farmers markets nowadays. There will be, there's always the kind of corporatized stuff, but then you find those little niche, the gal that's making earrings out of bottle caps and found art, and the guy that's making his own hand-cut cutting boards out of different kinds of wood, and all of these sorts of things that are more about small business passion of creating the thing.
So we're talking about the maker movement as a whole. Really, the maker movement is touching almost every fabric of a society at this point. It's in the farmer's market. It's in the stores. It's on Etsy. It's at the conventions.
And who these days has not heard of a 3D printer?
Yeah.
Okay, so my company...
my grandpa has probably not heard of a 3D printer. I'll be honest.
It's possible. It's possible. There are those people who haven't. Yeah. But as a technology, so my company has had 3D printers for making prototypes for 12 years. I mean, since it was a very new technology. But at that time, I mean, one of our 3D printers cost $180,000.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So the average Joe cannot afford not only to buy that machine, but even the material to use that machine.
Yeah.
But you get
where do I get the paper for this?
Exactly. Right. But you get the maker movement, and now you can go to Home Depot. You can go to Staples, and for somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000, you can buy a 3D printer, and for between $20 and $40 for the material, you can buy these spools of material, and you can make stuff. Yeah. And whether you want to be the creative force of creating this unique thing, or whether you want to go to Thingiverse and just say, I want to print a chess set. And you go there and you click on the things and you scale it and you say, go, print, and off you go. And that is very much a mindset of the maker movement, that you can create this thing, that there's nothing stopping you from doing this.
So what is the difference between a maker and an artist?
I would say an artist may have a very specific focus, a very specific media. Maybe that's true of some makers also. I consider myself an artist and a maker. I think maybe also an artist is in some ways a more pure form. I think that there would be individuals who, if you called them a maker, they would be insulted. Artists also maybe in some cases certainly more about creating from scratch, whereas a maker is more about creating from a legacy of knowledge.
Okay.
And so
I'm thinking about it. Perhaps an artist creates something that tends to be more connected with emotions.
That's good.
And a maker, maybe something that is more, what's the word? I don't want to use the word useful.
Well, how about this? I think an artist may rely more on creative impetus, whereas a maker is more of a synthesizer. A maker is more likely to take an existing thing and modify it and learn from a previous example, tweak it a little to their needs, and go that way. Whereas an artist...
and it's more about utility.
Yeah, sure, that's a good way to put it. Although a lot of makers are really making art as well. In general, I guess I would generalize and say more makers are about utility, right? That there's an end product that they're creating that isn't just aesthetic, though an awful lot of maker stuff has a strong aesthetic also. I mean, you look at like the Bazaar, beautiful, beautiful things that these people are creating. And they come from, you look at these things and you feel that place in your heart where they came from. Just like fine, good art that's like bringing forth this emotion. But I think you're right that the maker has perhaps more of an edge of utility to it, whereas art often is more a creation of itself.
They're definitely gray areas.
Yeah.
It's not so black and white. Now I have said multiple times on this show that for me one of the fascinating subjects for me is scientists versus artists, because my belief is that we are both groups. We are playing with reality. We're trying to understand reality. It's just that we're using different languages.
Okay.
And I wonder if the maker thing, the maker movement, is the cross section of the scientist and the artist. It's that midway point.
So maybe another approach is a scientist versus an artist are sort of the left and the right, or the up and the down.
Right.
They're looking from a different polarity towards a central thing.
Yeah.
If you look at, I have a dear friend who I was talking about hardware and software and computer programming versus the electronics that it runs on. And she very astutely said, it's like yin and yang. It's the masculine hardware and the feminine software. It's the stability of, this hard structure underneath with the flexibility of this software floating on top of it. And that's kind of a different way of looking at the engineer, scientist versus the artist poet. You look at a tool, and I've said a tool is an amplifier of your ability to do something. A tool is very much a scientific engineering thing. It is a hyper-specific design to solve a particular problem. But the problem that solves, that tool can be applied to do so many different things. Once you have made a good knife, sure, you could use that knife to cut a piece of meat, but you could also use it to whittle a block of wood, or to cut a rope, or trim a tree, or all of these different things. And so, you kind of have both in the maker movement. I mean,
it's the both the yin and yang come together.
Right.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So I see this last year, the most recent Maker Faire that you went to.
Yes.
How different was it from the first year?
Oh, it was so big that, and I took Delilah to that one. I didn't take her to the first one. So the first one, I felt like in the 2 days I was there, I was able to see everything comfortably, go through it again, spend some quality time at some of the booths. Last year, I didn't see the whole thing by any means. I certainly wish I had more time at some of the booths. I certainly wish there were less people. They actually have, I think last year was the first year that they added Friday as a extra day, ostensibly for education. So, school field trips and things like that could go there. Well, I have, in fact, my friend Jennifer went last year, bought the extra Friday ticket, and the advantage there was it was like the old days where there weren't many people. And you can go in depth, because...
Like pre-entry at the burn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, when there's only a few thousand people on site...
and Comic-Con does that on Wednesday night, by the way, preview night.
Okay. Yeah. Well, because, I mean, at that point, you can talk with a vendor, you can talk with somebody in their booth without worrying about, they could be talking with other people and making sales or making connections or whatever. So it's much more personal. So, yeah, certainly the early days, the small days, it was more personal, it was more approachable. But it wasn't affecting as many people's lives. And so, the last one, I mean, it's always amazing. So many different little, just kind of pieces, parts to the experiment. So a lady, just like moments from Maker Faire, a lady it has an old-fashioned typewriter, mechanical typewriter, and would for a few dollars write you a poem. She'd kind of interview you, and you give her some money, and she'd type this little poem.
That's cool.
The guy that has made in the Comic-Con style has made these Warhammer outfits that are literally, you have to be a stilt kind of walker to even get up inside these things, 8 feet tall, and probably weighs 100+ pounds. And the remote controlled battleships that actually shoot these like ball bearings, and the idea is to sink other guys' battleships.
Like the game Battleship, but it actually shoots.
No, but like Midway, the Battle of Midway. And in fact, so San Diego had their first big Maker Faire this last year. They've had it up in Del Mar a couple of years, much smaller, but they had a nice Maker Faire this last year. Definitely trying to get their feet under them in terms of like, it was at Balboa Park. So how do you coexist with all the museums, all the spaces that are there.
Yeah.
How do you pay for entry in this thing that's kind of free form, but you want to keep the park open for access and all? So it's it's definitely an adventure.
Yeah.
But they're giving it a shot.
Very cool. That's cool, Dave. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with me. This wonderful conversation and answered a lot of my questions, and I feel like I have a very good understanding of what it is now. I hope the listeners do too, and if they have more questions, they can tweet me and I'll text you.
Absolutely. And I would definitely look at the San Diego Maker Faire. That's an easy, accessible one. It's kind of like going to one of your local burns. To get your regional flavor,
Like
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dave. Thanks
Well,
so much.
thank you. A pleasure.
Burner Podcast.
All right, so that was Dave Cox. Dave, thank you so much for joining us. For this next segment of today's episode, we're going to sit down with Cody and Bob, and they'll introduce themselves as soon as they come on. So, you know what? It's not hard to tell. Cody's the girl, Bob is the guy. If you want more information about some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about there, makerfaire.com. That's makerfaire.com. That's the one that Dave's been going to, and we're going to be talking about that in this upcoming segment. There's also bpcp.org. P like Bravo, P like Papa, C like Charlie, P like Papa.org, so you can learn more about the cultural partnership, or you can just go to sdmakerfaire.org. You're going to hear us reference that in the upcoming segment as well. So let's talk to Bob and Cody about the logistics of a Maker Faire, what goes into it, who is a maker, who isn't a maker. It's kind of a spoiler alert. We're all pretty much makers. We're going to go ahead and get into that one right now. Bob and Cody. I interviewed Bob and Cody over at Balboa Park in a conference room, so the sound on this one kind of bounced off the walls a little bit more. It's the information that matters. It's the content. Let's get into that one.
Welcome home.
Set up with like mics and mixers, and I had like the producer sitting across from me with cords.
Go down to the fleet to their booth. They're recording.
Where are we right now? What is this office?
It's the
Balboa Park Cultural Partnership.
Okay, and then let's do this. Let's have each of you introduce yourselves so that the listeners can know whose voice they're hearing.
Okay. My name is Cody Nelson. I'm the Director of Events and Public Programs at Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. I'm also the producer for Maker Faire San Diego.
Beautiful. Just bring this up just a little bit. Okay, go
Do that
ahead.
again? Or?
No, you're good.
And I'm Bob Syfrett. I'm the operations coordinator for the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, which is fancy for a guy that does all the stuff that nobody else does.
Well, it's I imagine there's always like some sort of a position in nonprofits, especially where there's like the cartilage person is what I call it. Like their job is just to be like in between all the different bones.
Yeah, I'm the pivot. I'm essentially a department of one.
Yeah.
And I'm shared between multiple departments, Maker Faire being one of them, Explore Pass being another one. And then I answer the mail, answer the phones, pay the bills, go to the bank, all that stuff.
So you guys, so Maker Faire is a department within this particular nonprofit. That's what you just described it as?
Yeah, I mean, it's an event under my rung of events.
Okay.
But I, was selected because I have experience doing Maker Fairs in the Bay Area, the flagship event. So they brought me, when they did the whole hiring process, they were looking for someone that had that kind of experience.
Oh, cool. So how long has the Maker Faire, the one in the Bay Area, has been going for?
That one just did its 10th year.
Okay. Okay, so perfect. Because the interview that was recorded prior to you guys for the first segment of this episode was a lot about that, about the 10 years that Dave Cox was the name of the gentleman who was on. I don't know if you know. But
I know everybody, of course.
Of course. So after doing that for multiple years, you got hired to come over here and work on the San Diego version of it. Would that be correct?
Yeah. So Maker Faire, the movement is, it's rapidly spreading across the nation, and there are events that are done within cities. At first, they're called mini Maker Fairs. So that's essentially under a certain number of individuals attending the event. So like under 5,000. It can be more. Minis can be more. But it's a starting point for Maker Fairs. And then at some point in time, you would become a feature Maker Faire. So that means you become the city feature Maker Faire in the respective city that you're in. So this is going to be the feature for San Diego.
Awesome. And so the Big Daddy Maker Faire in the Bay Area, that is like a trademarked branded
Yes, that
name.
is correct.
So I can't just like up and make my own Maker Faire in South Dakota because I felt like it.
Nope.
I have to call it something else.
If you wanted to use the same brand and logo, you do need to talk to Make Media and license that logo under their guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then so like we've heard of other events. There's like the Maker Bazaar that recently passed in San Diego.
And that's different. So obviously that is brought up by someone else. So another entity is making their own event, which is great.
Yeah. They're makers of events.
They're makers of events.
Yeah. So Maker Faire, that name has to do with a very specific event, a very specific entity. Other twists on the Maker name are potentially other people that have started different kinds of events.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so now, apart from that, so we have Maker Faire, and then we have the other various Maker events.
Yes.
And then we have the Maker movement, which is sort of like the culture that powers the Maker Faire, if you will. Right.
And I think Maker Faire, the brand, which is backed by Make Media, Make Magazine, is also supporting the Maker movement, that Maker cultural movement across the nation. So you're going to see a lot coming from that group about the Maker movement.
Yeah. How long do you think before, or did it even, was there a Maker movement before Maker Faire started?
I'm not sure about that. I don't believe it was this organized. I think Dale Doherty was the person that was able to bring that to light and make it a thing. Okay. I don't think it was a thing before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of depends on how you think about it, because craft fair is at a very late.
I mean, there's other. I agree. I think there's, obviously making has always been a thing, but I don't think that word has ever been used in this way. Before, and it now has a definition, whereas before it was just like, I make things.
Yeah.
That's a part of what we were talking about in the earlier segment of this episode about like sort of how crafts movement evolved into the Maker movement. And Dave's idea of how that came to be is that the Maker movement tends to be more about let's sort of put a new mix on it or create a new thing out of it, whereas like craft tends to be more following an older formula.
It's a very hacking culture, so we take something, we hack it, we make it better, we're DIY. It's also doing it yourself. So not just DIY, but making sure that you are doing the entire process yourself. So if you think you want to build something, you go and just learn how to do it. Yeah. You want to build a robot, go learn how to build a robot. You want to learn how to do a program, go build, yourself. Instead of buying something, think about you can make it yourself. And it's very technology driven. So it's a very technology based culture, but at the same time, it represents everything that has to do with the making, crafting, movement, all of that put together.
I was sort of seeing it as, I feel like it's the intersection of art and science, if you will.
Yes.
It's like some sort of a middle ground where the two meet.
Yeah. And it goes the whole spectrum, because when you're at a Maker Faire, you're going to see art on one side, if we're going to call that the right, and then you're going to see all the way on the left technology. So we're thinking robotics, programming, you're going to see all of that, but then it all marries in the middle. So you're going to see extremes, and then it all comes together in the middle.
Okay. And so this is really interesting because it's basically, there's so many parallels with the Burning Man community, because it's almost like Maker Faire is like Burning Man, and then you have sort of like the burner movements that didn't have a name before, but the movement was there. It's not like Burning Man showed up and all of a sudden these people showed up out of nowhere. It's just that they didn't have an umbrella to go under.
Right.
And then now what that has also done is spawned tons and tons of other Burning Man officially associated events,
Right.
but that are like Lightning in a Bottle, for example. That's not Burning Man, but it rides on that same wave. And there's all kinds of other smaller festivals, Electric Poncho in Mexico, like things like that culture is sort of cultivated.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially, we just described pop culture. I think a movement begins and it might not have an identity at first, and then it turns into something and it explodes.
Yeah. It's perfect. Yeah. Okay, I've answered the world's problems with this one. We're done. So
Glad to be of service.
there we go. We solve all the world's problems. The good thing we record them at least. Usually I solve the world's problems with my friends and we don't tell anybody.
Or happens in the shower and you don't have something to write on.
Singing at the top of my lungs. So then this is the part that I always had a little, like, trying to figure out, trying to categorize, like, what is a maker? And we spent a lot of time talking about that in the earlier segment. I'd love to hear your definition.
Well, what's a burner?
Okay, so I'm going to get angry tweets about this, but it would be a burner. I would say is someone who is active in Burning Man style community events.
Well, that's your answer right there.
Yeah, a maker is anyone that makes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So if you make things, whatever that may be, you're a maker.
Okay. I make a podcast.
Sure, you're a maker. I make events.
Okay.
I'm a maker of events.
So who's not a maker?
We are all makers.
Okay.
We are.
Okay. So see, I would say, like, with burner, I could say, like, you know what? My mom is not a burner. Most definitely.
But your mom's a maker.
She made a human.
Yeah, that's correct. There you go. She probably likes to do things, whether that's cooking or I don't know. I'm just saying she probably makes things and doesn't realize that she's a maker.
Yes.
She doesn't realize that that's what she loves. She has a passion towards something, and that's what making is all about, is the passion. So I think we are very inclusive. I think that's the thing that might be different, is we're inclusive of the making culture. So we want to see the crafters, we want to see the DIYers, we want the burners, we want all of that included in the maker movement, because that is making.
Yeah. So let's say I'm making a thing, and I want to be involved in a Maker Faire. What process is it like that? Not every single detail, but like what do I do? Do I send an application? Does somebody have to approve it? How does this work?
Yeah, so you do have to submit an application. We do review projects for, what are they going to be presenting at the fair? The idea with a project is you want to share how you built it. Why you want to be excited about why you built it. It doesn't have to have a real purpose or intent. And then we group individuals with like-minded individuals, so to speak, like activities. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we juxtapose things together because we think it'll look interesting. And those individual makers might have fun talking to another group of individual makers, and they've now come up with a new idea for making something.
Yeah.
But
who doesn't get in? Whose application gets rejected?
It would be someone that just, wants to stand there and not actually share and make. It's difficult to get rejected at this point in time until we get to a point where we have too many people applying. Yeah. That might be the issue in the future, is a capacity issue.
Interesting.
But we would do our best to combine groups together as much as possible to make sure they're included. Mm-hmm. So it's still an inclusive culture. It just means I'll have to expand.
I wonder, have you guys, to the best of your knowledge, have you come across a situation, because we know this has happened in the Burning Man community as it's gotten bigger, is we'll have commercial entities try to come in disguised as art, but they're just trying to sell champagne. And then we find out later that they, totally tricked a group of people into being part of a photo shoot for Vogue magazine or something.
Right.
Like, have you had anything like that happen with the maker movement?
I know that this probably happens more, and I'm not speaking for anyone at this moment, I'm just speaking from my own perspective. This probably happens more at the flagship events because clearly they're there for marketing purposes. But I think what we try to do is we lead them in the right direction. We want that person to participate, but we say, if you're going to participate, you need to be making something. You need to show us something that you've either made. Maybe your research and development department has some projects that they're working on. And then when you're sharing at the event, it's actually, you've shared something interesting, relevant to the maker movement. You're not just there to sell. You're not just there to market. So it's a little bit of a different approach to marketing but we do definitely say, well, okay, if you're interested in participating, then you got to make something. What are you going to make? Or you're going to bring it. You got to present it.
Yeah. So you don't have a cap on the size of the entity that could apply to being a maker.
No, we don't actually. Right. So as long
Johnson
as
Johnson can contribute.
If they want to. Honestly, if Johnson & Johnson wanted to bring their research and development department and they're like, hey, we are working on this and I want to show you how cool that is, bring it.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So how big is the flagship event or a flagship event versus the size of this one here? What are we calling it?
So this is a feature event.
Feature event, okay.
So it's a feature event, Maker Faire San Diego. So flagship has 100,000 people attending, and it would have about 900 makers, which is
How
crazy.
many of those are there?
The features or the flagships. There's 3 flagships at this moment: New York, Detroit, and San Mateo. So San Mateo is the flagship, and then they have 2 others: New York and Detroit.
Okay.
And then the rest across the country are either a feature or mini Maker Faire.
So first it's mini, then it's feature.
Yeah.
So it's like a toddler, then a teenager, then one day you'll be a grown-up.
Right.
How far away do you think San Diego is from being able to be a feature maker? How far are we?
So we are considered a feature.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we'll never be a flagship.
Okay.
So a flagship is going to be San Mateo. That's always going to be San Mateo. That is the mother event, so to speak. Okay. We will never be the mother event.
We're a regional.
We're a regional. Event.
Yeah. Because of course in Burning Man community we have like the San Diego Regionals Utopia, for example.
Right.
Okay, interesting. And so, is there a cap on how big this event can get?
No, I mean, obviously we're in Balboa Park, we can keep growing. I mean, we can grow as much as we possibly can within Balboa Park, and there's a lot of space here. There's a lot. I mean, we don't have to worry about that for quite a few years.
Yeah. So I wonder, has there been anything that has come out of the maker movement that comes to either of your minds that has made a big enough noise that it's made its way into mainstream culture at this point? Because we've seen that a little bit with Burning Man, with certain art approaches, fashion for sure. A lot of fashion that has come out of Burning Man has now made its way to like Ross.
Yeah, that's happening. No, that's happening a lot actually.
Yeah.
Bliss Dance is now, where's that placed?
Which one?
Bliss Dance, the giant sculpture.
Oh yeah. That's isn't that in Vegas?
I've seen that in so many different places.
It's
I think it's it might be in Vegas. I think that's the last tweet that I saw. Yeah. We've had multiple pieces of art that have shown up, like in music video. Like they've gotten into the mainstream level. So I'm wondering if any technology out of the Maker Faire has done that.
There's definitely a lot of startups that will start at a Maker Faire, and then their product will be well known, like the hoverboard, for example. I don't know if you recall. They were at Maker Faire 2 years ago, and they were there as a startup, and then the next year they were launching their product, and it was newsworthy because if you recall, the product kept exploding and it was burning literally. So definitely there's products that will they will be at an event as either a startup product or as a making product. I mean, there's other things that are continuously used right now in the maker movement that are already a part of mainstream culture, like using Raspberry Pi or Arduino. Lots of the LEDs for fashion, like you just said. So those things already exist. And then they do get put into products, so they get used in a newer, specific way. So that is happening. So yes, that happens a lot, actually.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
By the way, whenever people bring up Raspberry Pi, I just smile and nod like I know what they're talking about, but I don't know what it is.
It's a simple way to do. It's an easy way to get into programming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The hoverboard thing is interesting.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I bet you most people had no idea that it was a startup. I think most people thought it was some major company that just busted it out.
Right.
How are they doing? Are they still exploding?
I have no idea. I know that things got recalled.
What is the most surprising maker item that you could think of? Like something that you might say most people would never think, oh, I didn't know something like that would be at Maker Faire.
Marshmallow shooters.
That is not the most surprising thing. That's a very difficult question for me because I feel like I'm saturated with things that are. I feel like every time I go through the Maker Faire, I see so many cool things, and I'm like, "Wow, you did that! How did you come up with that? That's awesome!" One of the things I saw this year that I really liked, and it already was in existence for several years, is 3D printing machines are really popular. Well, someone has a pancake printing machine. And that's just one of those things that's odd. Like you walk past it and you're like, how did you think to do that?
Yeah.
Or there's a disappearing ink printer, and you go past these products and you're like, how did you think to make that? And that's awesome. That's the point, is when you have this shareable culture and you're saying, hey, we want to make this available for even someone like you to come up with a product that you think is cool. And it's not just coming from a business entity that's promoting a product.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you guys find yourselves being courted by major businesses? Do you think they're watching from a distance? Like, what are they making of this?
I don't think businesses in every region understand the potential. I know that at a feature event or at a flagship event, they get that, but at a feature event in a city that's just growing and starting, they're not quite there yet in terms of courting. Because I think everybody's still trying to understand what the movement is and what it means to that city. Yeah. Each region is going to have its own take on it. I've already experienced that from living in the Bay Area and then coming down here and realizing how saturated the maker movement is in the Bay Area. It exists there. People just know it. But when I come down to San Diego, for example, and I start talking to people about it, the questions that I get from people are like, what is maker? Yeah. What is making? I don't know. What did you just say to me?
You could have just replaced the word maker with burner.
Right.
Man.
That's exactly right.
Over here, like I said earlier when we met, I asked you, are you familiar with burner?
Yeah.
Because I'm used to having to ask that question.
Yeah.
San Francisco is just like, man, great.
Yeah, we know about it. Okay, yeah. It's true. So,
Our executive director over the weekend just watched a documentary, Burning Man documentary.
Spark?
The one from 2003. Is that the...
I think that may have been Spark.
And he says, I had no idea. I said, wow, Peter.
Yeah, and that's 2003.
Welcome.
Let's see, look at whatever's coming out of 2015. There's a really great one you should show them called Charlie Goes to Burning Man. Have you seen that one?
No, I have not.
It's only 15 minutes.
Okay.
It's gorgeous.
We used to have a film festival here in the park at MOPA over here, Museum of Photographic Arts, but it hasn't occurred for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to bring it back.
Maybe.
There you go.
It's funny, I was thinking, you were asking about if anything useful has come out of Maker Faire or Burning Man. The first people that I met on Playa ever, other than the people I was camping with, were these guys that had built a pneumatic cannon to shoot rolled up pairs of pants.
And that gets used all the time at baseball games and events,
It's useful doesn't need to mean moving society forward.
That's right.
Punk and junket, is that really useful?
Yeah.
Well, and that's not the point.
Yeah,
we're not trying to make things useful. We're just trying to make things.
Plus a whole trailer full of Guinness. But
it's amazing.
A few conversations.
Is there so do you guys court people to apply, or do people apply?
Obviously, when we're in a growing stages, yes, I have to go to people. So actually, what I've been doing a lot is reaching out to communities. It's one of the first things I did when I got here was reaching out to the runner community to see, hey, I would love to have you participate in the event. What can we do? And I definitely got a wonderful response back. In addition to, I went out to the local beer making community and I said, hey, you guys are makers. Come show us your process. And it's not just about having the beer at the event. It's about show us by brewing the beer. Tell us about the mistakes you've gone through. Show us your brewing stand and what you make, how you made it, how you built it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I also found another, a surfboard shaping studio. And that all they do is DIY, build your own surfboards. So yes, I am reaching out to all these little entities and I'm saying, hey, we'd love to have you participate, come to our event. And they're obviously biting.
Yeah.
They're saying, yes, we want to be there.
That's awesome. So if I want to be a part of Maker Faire, what do I have to do? What do I do? Okay, so let's say I'm making something.
You can attend, but yeah, if you want to actually present, if you want to present something, you do need to apply. We will have the call to makers in that last week in June, so I think it's June 27th, on our website.
Suspiciously close to Burning Man.
It's coming up. And our website is sdmakerfair.org, so you apply there. Obviously, you can come to the event. Tickets are available there as well.
Is there an application fee?
No, makers participate for free. So if you're just there to make and you're not trying to sell a product, because you can sell products at event, obviously, let's say you're a crafter and you want to sell your crafts that you've made. Yes, you do pay a fee to sell at the event. But to be a maker, no, we don't charge makers.
Okay. And also to attend, I imagine.
If you're going to attend the event, we do ticket the event, so you do have to purchase a ticket.
Okay. How long is the event?
2 days, October 1st and 2nd.
Okay, cool. What other information do you think people should know? And there's no cap on what they want to make, so pretty much anything. They can throw it together. And
anything. Please bring it our way. Would love it.
Yeah. Now I kind of want to make some crap.
I know.
I mean, I'd love to.
I'm like, you're into. It doesn't matter if you're into rockets. Yeah. That's huge. Drones, rockets, augmented reality, fashion. So technology and fashion, crafting, any kind of crafts, anything, all applies.
Yeah.
I mean, if you make it, bring it.
Yeah, see, the reason I couldn't apply is because I honestly have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, you don't have to be a professional.
Yeah.
That's the point. You just have to enjoy what you do. So if you
wouldn't necessarily be alone.
Build things at your house and you want to talk about that process of building and what you did to problem solve to make that happen, then bring that project and share. Yeah.
Did you guys I imagine there's conversation amongst yourselves about what it is that drives human beings to want to make, to want to create?
Never had this conversation with you. I think...
It's only because you're married.
Oh, really? I think that we are not always taught to make. I think that there was maybe a period of time where we had no choice and we had to make things to survive. And then I think we're now at a period of time where people have forgotten how to make things and they rely on things to be made. And I think that might be the key to the maker movement is we're going back to that. It's a retro thing. It's like, hey, why don't we make it ourselves and see what happens? It's the way Grandpa used to do it, Build it yourself.
I would say there's a similar energy in the burner community about going back to a spirituality from a time before what's happening and going back to going out to nature, the desert, and all these kind of things.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
We've reached the top of Maslow's pyramid.
Yeah. It's true.
Now it's like, hey, let's take things away.
Our needs are fulfilled.
Yeah.
So what's next?
I've said multiple times on the show, I feel in my artist journey, what I've discovered is that I think that every single human being, our first instinct in our core, in our guts, is to create. And whether it's you want to create more humans, or the first thing you want to do when you start learning how to use your limbs is you want to draw or you want to put something on top of something. Yeah. You close your eyes and you imagine something. It is what we do. We're built to create. And it feels like for a huge chunk of human history,
makers.
Yeah. I think for a huge time in history, we got used to consuming, but yeah, you're right. Now we have these communities we're able to build and connect with each other, and here we are.
Yeah.
I think it's just we're reminding ourselves, hey, we're supposed to be doing this.
Yeah.
Don't let mass production take over so much, even though we still need it.
Yeah.
Just find the balance. There needs to be a balance. Make it within your communities. We can also do things on a large scale, but also bring it back home. Yeah.
That's cool. So what is there anything big on the horizon? What's next? Are we just basically right now building the community?
Yeah, we're building the community at this moment in time. I think we're on the upward swing to this. Yeah.
Building the community, collaborating with the existing communities as well. That's kind of exciting.
It has been exciting.
What other communities have you guys been reaching out to other than the burner community?
Well, like I said, we're either looking at education communities, which is interesting because those are people that are taught a specific way to do things, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Definitely because we're in Balboa Park, we're reaching out to art, we're reaching out to culture. So I'm also trying to figure ways to include, we have the Old Globe, for example, here. So I'm trying to figure out, theater has it's sort of going through a revolution. If you're familiar with something called Without Walls, it's bringing theater outside and not so much in its traditional setting. And so there's ways to include that as a part of the maker movement as well, because that is making, even though it's not a physical product, we're able to consume and enjoy that product right then and there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Beautiful. In theater, there is traditional making too.
Yes, it is.
And all that kind of stuff.
That's right. Oh, yeah. That's what I forgot to mention. That there's set building. There's technical involved with that, and then there's the actual acting itself, and there's costuming. Yeah. So there is a lot involved with that we're trying to make sure. So I think the park, being in Balboa Park, helps me. With that wealth of information, I'm reaching out to the different institutions. I'm going outside of the park and I'm saying, whoever wants to participate in this, please do. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What was a sort of final question here? What was the event that was happening today? That was taking. It was a barbecue.
So
we're the cultural partnership. Balboa Park Cultural Partnership is the collaborative hub of the cultural institutions in the park. And this is the third annual barbecue. It's just
that's right.
We put it on for the volunteers and the people that work in the park.
Okay.
It's just a fun event that we put on.
Hang out a little bit, maybe get a phone number,
just schmooze, and it's all the way from the executive directors all the way down to their lowest level non-paid volunteer.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that like there's like it's a staircase, but. Yeah, we put the EDs out at the front, checking people in, so that they can kind of see the folks, see the people that they work with, and work for. So
there are social events. There's very much the community being built. So people aren't just sitting around making stuff all day long. Like sometimes they're hanging out and having a beer.
Yep. And making conversation.
Yeah, making. Oh. And before you know it, they're scratching on a napkin and okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Guys, thank you so much for coming on and answering these questions. This show is mostly an excuse for me to learn new crap. So this has been pretty awesome. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, well, there it is. The Maker Movement episode of Burner Podcast. You can tweet me directly at Mr. Arash, that's spelled MRARASH. And when discussing the show, please do use the hashtag Burner Podcast. You can also catch me on the Crappy Awesome Podcast. That is a weekly interview show and a staple in the independent hip-hop community for like 5-ish years, 240 episodes. Find it over at platformcollection.com. This show is up on Libsyn and SoundCloud first. Libsyn is the broadcasting platform, and it sends it over to iTunes. SoundCloud has really great quality. That's where you can download the show and keep it if you want to hold on to this audio. Then it gets onto iTunes and Stitcher and TuneIn.com and some other places, I think. Anyway, leave us some reviews on iTunes. I know it's like pulling teeth getting you guys to interact on social media. I know you're listening because we're looking at the numbers, not Jeep reports to me. Every episode we get more and more numbers. But yeah, it would really help us get the word out about this show. We're trying to share Burner Podcast with more people without seeming spammy, because you come out of vacation. And what would help us is if you left us some reviews. Thanks in advance. The Burner Podcast theme song is America's Horse with No Name remix, produced by Joman. Check out his stuff over at soundcloud.com/DJJoman. Make sure you go to duckmansd.bandcamp.com. Show some support to Duckman as well. He's an amazing musician, and we pretty much just go through all of his library whenever we need music for this show. This episode is produced by me, actually. Normally it's produced by Meg King, but this one was me. Meg got to take a little vacation. Dear God, I can't wait for her to get back. Shoot her a message on Twitter at @MegKing. Our online editor is Tanasi. He writes and curates the blog. You can reach him by shooting him a message at burnerpodcast.com. Hope you will join us next time. We do release new episodes on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. So until next time, love and light and all that other crap. Good night.